Carrie Lam announces the Lantau Tomorrow Vision, a comprehensive land reclamation project of 1,700 hectares. A plan to increase tolls at 2 of the 3 harbour crossings in 2020 to redistribute traffic. And initiatives to abolish the MPF offsetting arrangement. Good evening. Chief Executive Carrie Lam unveiled her second policy address with bold plans for Hong Kong. She proposed a large-scale land reclamation project with man-made islands near Lantau to provide 1,700 hectares of land. Lam announced about 250 initiatives in her latest blueprint entitled Striving Ahead, Rekindling Hope. Instead of reading out the entire document, she only gave highlights at the Legislative Council this morning. Land and housing continue to dominate the agenda. Kaina Chu begins our policy address coverage with the government's plan to boost land and housing supply.
The city's leader presented her development plans even before the Land Supply Task Force submits its final report. The Lantau Tomorrow Vision tops Carrie Lam's agenda as she elaborated further in a press conference this afternoon.
In my view, are quite narrow-minded to try to avoid doing things because it is expensive. We need to ask ourselves whether that will provide a long-term supply of housing and land to meet the long-term social and development needs of the people of Hong Kong.
From 2025, the government hopes to carry out land reclamation works to create artificial islands with a total area of about 1,700 hectares in the central waters near Khao Yi Chau and Healing Chau. With a new transport system, authorities hope to transform the plots of land so created into a third core business district. Up to 400,000 residential units will be built on the islands, and 70% of them will be public housing flats. In the process, 340,000 new jobs will be created. A $1 billion fund will be set up to facilitate the conservation of rural Lantau. Here's an expert's take on the plans.
Creating this massive artificial island is going to create more carbon emission. This place is really very far away. Most of the land will be for public housing and for relocating redevelopment, residents affected by redevelopment. So will these people be dumped there?
To boost land supply, there is also a land-sharing pilot scheme. Participating developers who hold agricultural lands in the new territories will have to share at least 60% of the sites with the government to build public housing. Similarly, at the MTR Corporation's Siho Wan Depot site, at least 14,000 public and private residential units will be provided through topside developments. Kaina Chu, TVB News.
On labour rights, Hong Kong is playing catch-up. First by extending the statutory maternity leave from 10 weeks to 14, where employers can apply for reimbursement of the additional expenditure from the government. Elmi Lung tells us more.
With immediate effect, government workers will have their maternity leave extended by 4 weeks. The 14-week leave raises Hong Kong to a level recommended by the International Labour Organization. To cover that extra time, employers may soon apply for around $36,000 from the government.
As the first female chief executive of the Hong Kong SAR, I have an extra responsibility to devote efforts in promoting women's development.
She also proposed to strengthen childcare services, provide breastfeeding rooms in new government premises, and have that provision included in future land sales. When it comes to abolishing the MPF offsetting mechanism, things aren't as straightforward.
Too complicated. SME got quite difficult to understand the full system.
There'll be no changes to the first-tier subsidy to partially cover employers' payments for 12 years. Yet the government wants to extend the second-tier subsidy to 25 years. It aims to help businesses that haven't saved enough to cover staff's long service or severance payments. This improved subsidy scheme costs $29.3 billion. The ultimate goal is to scrap the offsetting mechanism by 2022.
You are making a proactive stance to give more protections to the labourers, which is good, but it's not enough and it's not comprehensive.
Elmi Long, TVB News.
Motorists may have to pay a lot more when using the Cross Harbour Tunnel or the Eastern Harbour Crossing beginning in 2020. Haley Jo with details.
Serious traffic congestions prompted the government to propose fare adjustments at the city's 3 harbour crossings. Private cars at the Cross Harbour Tunnel may see the $20 toll go up to $40, and a proposed $15 hike at the Eastern Harbour Crossing rising to $40. The Western Harbour Crossing may see tolls drop from the current $70 to $50 for private cars. Cabbies and motorcyclists may also pay adjusted fares, as a government study revealed these 3 types of vehicles constitute some 75% of the Cross Harbour traffic volume. Taxis carrying passengers may need to pay $20 at the Cross Harbour Tunnel and the Eastern Harbour Crossing and $36 at the Western Harbour Crossing. The government has reached an in-principle agreement with the franchisee of the Western Harbour Crossing on a toll compensation scheme. The government wants the new toll rates to take effect from January 1st, 2020. Also in the pipeline, waiving tolls for franchised buses using government tunnels and roads. The Western Harbour Crossing franchisee has also agreed to that arrangement, again with government compensation. This is all done to avoid possible bus fare hikes.
There are also plans to make Hong Kong a more walkable city, as well as improve barrier-free access facilities. Haley Jo, TVB News.
Recurrent education expenditure will get an extra $4.7 billion. As Christy Leung reports, thousands of teachers working in public sector schools may see a pay rise.
Though most teachers at local schools are university graduates, the pay is not equal. Around 9,400 degree holders work as certificate posts in government and subsidized schools. They earn less than those working at graduate posts. Starting from next school year, they may see a pay rise. Under the new all-graduate teaching force policy, all of them will be hired for graduate posts, involving $1.5 billion. Another $570 million will be given to public sector schools and those under the direct subsidy scheme. That's to increase manpower as well as administrative support for schools.
We have been complaining that the school teachers are forced to take care of their non-teaching duties, strengthening administration, including the adding of one comparatively senior administrator in school will be helpful.
Other plans include extra funds to enhance vocational training and support students with special educational needs. Christy Leung, TVB News.
On public health, Carrie Lam spoke at length on primary healthcare and disease prevention. Caleb Leung has details.
Carrie Lam today called healthcare services the greatest public concern after housing. She followed up on her plan to strengthen primary health care through district health centers. The first one is being set up in Kwai Tsing, while the model will be extended to other districts. Chinese medicine users will get subsidies for inpatient and outpatient services at the Chinese Medicine Hospital under planning. The 18 Chinese medicine centers for training and research will also provide subsidized outpatient services. Also, a strategy for cervical cancer prevention. Schoolgirls will receive free HPV vaccinations starting from the next school year. As for drug expense subsidies, Lam suggested revising the financial assessment and lowering the calculation of assets contribution, which will ease the burden of patients and families. A medical sector lawmaker suggested controlling drug prices during the registration phase.
We need to control the budget and also the cost of the medications when there's a very, very expensive one to protect the public.
Bad news for smokers, as the CE proposed a ban on the import, manufacture, sale, distribution and advertisement of e-cigarettes and other new smoking products. Although the chief executive proposed a series of bans on e-cigarettes, she made no mention on outlawing the smoking of such products. Caleb Leung, TVB News.
Turning overseas, at least 50 people were killed, including 7 children, in bus crash in Kenya. The bus was traveling from Nairobi to the western city of Kisumu. Witnesses say the bus swerved off the road as it was going down a steep slope and plunged down into a field. It's suspected the driver lost control of the bus. The roof was ripped off the vehicle as it overturned. Survivors were taken to nearby hospitals. Nikki Haley has decided to resign as U.S. ambassador to the United Nations. Sonia Otero has more.
With President Donald Trump at her side, the departing U.S. ambassador to the UN announced she's leaving at the end of this year because she just needs a break.
I was governor for 6 years, and we dealt with a hurricane, a 1,000-year flood, a church shooting, a school shooting. There was a lot. And then to come in and do 2 years of Russia and Iran and North Korea, it's been 8 years of intense time, and I'm a believer in term limits. I think you have to be selfless enough to know when you step aside and allow someone else to do the job. So thank you, Mr. President. It's been an honor of a lifetime.
Haley also put to rest the rumors that she plans to challenge President Trump for the presidency.
No, I'm not running for 2020. I can promise you what I'll be doing is campaigning for this one. So I look forward to supporting the president in the next election.
Critics call the abrupt resignation just another disgruntled Trump administration staff. But while lauding Haley's record, Trump admitted he knew she was leaving months ago.
She told me probably 6 months ago, she said, you know, maybe at the end of the year, at the end of a 2-year period, but at the end of the year, I want to take a little time off. But she's done a fantastic job, and we've done a fantastic job together.
Former Trump aide Dina Powell is under consideration for Haley's replacement, as are other worthy candidates. Sonia Artero, TVB News.
It's being called the most powerful storm ever to threaten the Florida Panhandle. Hurricane Michael is now a potentially devastating Category 4 storm on a scale of 5. Almost 500,000 coastal residents were urged to seek higher ground, as Michael is expected to bring storm surges of up to 4 meters high. Alan Buckneer reports.
Hurricane Michael lashed western Cuba as a Category 1 storm, bringing gusty winds and heavy flooding. It's strengthening as it crosses the Gulf of Mexico. The U.S. National Hurricane Center says Michael has intensified to a dangerous Category 4 storm with winds of at least 210 kilometers per hour.
This is a very dangerous, life-threatening hurricane, and all preparations against a landfalling major hurricane in the hurricane warning area should be rushed to completion, including evacuation and whatever other precautions are necessary at this time.
Bevan said unlike Hurricane Florence, which gave 5 days warning before slamming into the Carolinas last month, then lingered for days as a strong storm, Michael is much more fast-moving. The storm is likely to drop up to 30 centimeters of rain in some areas of Florida, Alabama, and Georgia. Coastal residents are being warned of potentially devastating waves of up to 4 meters high that could rush inland for kilometers around the storm's center. And while Michael is not expected to hit hurricane-weary North and South Carolina, its surrounding rain presents a threat.
Heavy rains could quickly lead to flash flooding, especially where the ground is still saturated from Florence. Wet ground also means that it won't take as much wind to bring down trees and with them power lines. Along our coast and sounds, Michael may cause moderate storm surge.
Hurricane Michael, captured here from the International Space Station, has already caused major disruptions to